Welcome to r/malicious compliance, where we share stories of people conforming to the letter but not the spirit of a request. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. The first story: Microsoft Excel veteran believes they know best, then gets a lesson on how Excel works. The second story: customer spent £300 on something he didn't need, and now he can't return it or get a refund. The third story: boss said that she didn't pay me for the work, so I didn't do anything. The first story is, okay, I'll downgrade your computer. This was quite a few years ago, but I used to do IT for a company that was suddenly experiencing rapid growth. This meant many new employees got new out-of-the-box computers, but it also meant that it was hard to always be fully stocked. But the shipping was quick and they basically ordered the exact amount of computers required to fill new employee needs. Employees before this obviously have computers that may be a couple years old. This story will feature one such employee. People involved: me, Excel. The employee's main tool for his job was Excel. Excel had noticed many of the newer employees were getting new computers, and he felt upset he wasn't using one of these new computers. He had actually been upgraded a year before, which was also before this rapid growth. So what was the upgrade? The year before, there was budget to upgrade CAD workstation users to brand new ones. The company bought their equipment outright, so the former CAD workstations could be reused easily for non-CAD users. For those not familiar, these machines are often higher end, as they are used for high-end visual work, virtual machines, etc. Our company paid about $2,500 each for these. His was one of these repurposed machines. It was currently 2-ish years old and had 16 gigs of RAM, quad-core Xeon SSD, and a workstation video card that doesn't really benefit him. What was in the brand new computers people got? A dual-core CPU, 8 gigs of RAM, and a 500 gigabyte non-SSD drive. You can probably guess where this is going. Excel: how come most of my coworkers have a better computer than me? Me: I think your computer seems fine, but if you're having performance issues, I could look at it. Excel: it doesn't run as quickly as my coworkers. Me: could you show me quickly what you're doing? He showed me and he was pretty much inefficiently running his Excel, causing it to be bloaty with overly large file sizes considering it's Excel. He honestly should have had a few different Excel worksheets and files for this. This was more an Excel limitation back then than a hardware issue. I talked about this a bit and he didn't want to listen. Excel: see, it's not running very well. Me: I see that. Have you tried doing? Excel: yes, and it didn't work. Could I get an upgrade? Me: honestly, your computer is likely better than your colleagues, so I don't think this is going to help Excel. Would you mind if I helped you optimize your files? Excel: it's not going to work. I've tried. Can you give me a different computer? One like my coworkers have? Me: sure, if your manager sends me an email that says this is vital to your work, I could have one ordered for you. Excel: that'd be good. I'll have them email you. At this point, I thought it was done, as most won't bother their managers about this. If they do, most managers will almost never do this. I didn't want to downgrade the guy either, even though he was coming across arrogant. Unfortunately, I was wrong. I guess it was in his department's budget, or he was doing important work for the department. I already knew what was going to likely happen from this, so immediately I forwarded the email to my manager. I then promptly called my manager as well and gave him a quick rundown. I told him this is obviously going to come back later, since he's using Excel wrong and won't listen. Why didn't I just have his file used on another employee's computer to show him, you may ask? Privacy and confidentiality reasons. You're only supposed to use your assigned computer except in certain circumstances. So fast forward to him getting his new computer. He failed to back his data up, so I had to help him retrieve it. Also, how long did his new computer last after this, before he was upset it wasn't working well, you may ask? 1 hour. Unfortunately, I was busy because, as I said, the company was growing fast, and couldn't run to help over something with this type of priority. He can do his job, albeit not optimally because of his Excel knowledge. I had him go through service desk knowing it's coming back to me eventually. He had to wait about 2 days. He begged for his other computer back. At this point, I was done playing this ridiculous game. This was taking way too much of my time and I'm not swapping it again. Also, that computer was just billed to his department. I don't really want to unassign it and reassign his old one, and have it put back in the inventory pool for his department. Me: do you mind if I can actually test for a minute to see if I can fix your Excel first? Excel: it's not going to do anything. I use this program every day. I know what I'm doing. Me: okay, but I need to test because if I don't, my manager's going to ask me why I didn't before I swapped again. Note my manager trusts me and doesn't care, but I need to make it clear this is a requirement without creating a conflict, such as him thinking I believe he's lying. Excel. Sure, whatever. I'm gonna go grab a coffee. Me. Actually, can you grab a chair and stay for a couple minutes? I proceeded to quickly check the Excel file to avoid breaking references, and make this basically 10 megabyte, don't remember exact size currently, 32-bit garbage Excel file into 5 different files. Honestly, these files are still pretty crap, but suddenly Excel isn't hanging or freezing for often a minute or more, anymore. Excel. How'd you do that? Is there any way you can combine the files for convenience? Me. I think you should keep the files separated. When a file gets too bloated, Excel struggles to handle them. At this point, about half of his department is looking at us. I can tell a few are trying not to laugh. I think they kinda realized that this guy was kinda rude to me before was the cause of his own issue. Excel. Oh, well, okay, I guess. I stand up and tell him to have a good day and leave. He didn't even say thanks. So this rude dude wasted your time and hers without any appreciation? Pay attention to others. When people don't use their manners and act like titular jerks, don't give them any favors. That includes this dude. My coworker, thankfully recently laid off, had the same attitude. I used to help her and then I turned her down. She didn't know how to say thank you. Yes, office workers need a new thing. New equals reward for hard work equals respect. Besides, everyone likes it when someone makes a fuss about them. Getting a new computer is great, but they forget that they need to reset everything. Your desktop has changed, your files are arranged differently, your default settings have changed. I went through these discussions in a previous job in IT. We had engineers who had CAD software and MS Project when Project was purchased separately from the rest of the Office suite. We had one perk employee in the non-engineering department who decided they needed Project too, since the engineers had it. My boss said, sure, just send your boss an email explaining what Project is and how it will be used in your work, and then have him give me his approval to buy it. Never heard of it again. The boss was a master at never telling people no, but also at not giving in to random whims. The second story is, being rude to customer service costs £300. Back in 2003, I was working as a minimum wage counter monkey in a computer parts store. We built a few full computers, but mostly sold individual components for people who knew what they were doing. Now, certain components, CPUs and hard drives, are unrestockable, which means unless they're sold faulty, you can't return them for a refund. Technically, the restocking fee is 100% of the cost. Basically, they're the underwear of the PC hardware world. Nobody wants something that could have been physically but not visibly damaged. So rude customer RC comes into the store to my counter. He shows me his receipt from last week, including a Shuttle SN45G board and an Athlon XP 3200 Plus CPU. I immediately know what he's going to say. You see, the board was designed to take the CPU, but it came out first, and once the CPU was released, Shuttle sent a one-page PDF explaining that when you first powered it up with that CPU, you had to hold down INS or it wouldn't boot. This is a 20-second job that the least tech-savvy person could easily do. RC tells me that his computer won't boot because the CPU is broken, so he needed a new CPU. If I recall, it cost about £300, near £500 in 2019 money. I had a stack of those printed PDFs to hand. I'd already given out several that week and started to explain that the CPU was fine, but he just needed to... No, he interrupted, the CPU is broken. I need a new one. Me, this is a known problem, and it's really easy to fix. All you need, RC, I need a new CPU. Me, I have a sheet explaining all of... Now RC puts on the most insulting, deliberately idiot-sounding voice. RC, it is broken. I need a new one. I look down, close my eyes, take a deep breath, and put on my best customer service smile and voice. Me, okay, here's your invoice. That'll be £300. How'd you like to pay? RC walks out of the store 2 minutes later, holding his shiny new CPU, his wallet 300 pounds lighter. In all my jobs, I've gone out of my way to try to help people, but this time I chuckle, knowing that because RC was rude and refused to listen. 1. He's wasted 300 pounds on something he doesn't need. 2. He won't be able to return it or get a refund. 3. He still won't be able to boot his computer. Moral of the story? If an expert in your problem is trying to help you, listen and don't be rude. Not so hard, is it? Well, this client got what he wanted. He could have listened to you and saved money, but he decided he was smarter than the employee. And it seems to me that the replacement he bought won't work either, because he doesn't listen to a known solution. I always hate it when someone acts like an idiot, but treats you like you're acting stupid. In most retail establishments, you can't fight back. You just have to sit there and listen to an idiot call you stupid. I sympathize with the OP. I'm also a little curious as to why this guy was happy to pay $300 for something he thought was sold to him broken. It's actually very easy to get refunds for defective items. Don't buy another one, exchange it for a new one. Alternatively, if my processor didn't work, I would want my money back, but definitely not buy a new one. The last story is, I will personally ensure you don't get paid for a minute's work. Well, I guess I won't work then. Over summer last year, I worked for a hospitality agency, doing everything from kitchen work and pot washing to bartender in front of house. As an agency employee, I was working at a different venue almost every shift, and towards the end of the summer, I was asked to work as a waiter at an exhibition center in my city. I arrived wearing my waiter uniform, shirt, tie, smart shoes, to the admin office of the exhibition center around 20 minutes before my shift time, and proceeded to be bounced around between different buildings, as nobody could find out where I was supposed to be working. I was the only employee from my agency there. At big events, the organizers tend to hire several different agencies, and was in constant contact with my manager back at the office, explaining to her that there was confusion about where I'd be working, but I had arrived on time and had parking tickets, etc. to prove it. Around an hour passes before I'm finally sent to one of several food stands in the center and told I would be doing pot washing. Now, I would never have worn smart clothing if I knew this was the case, as your clothes are guaranteed to get very messy if you're cleaning the greasy pots, etc. But at this point, I was tired of waiting around doing nothing, so I borrowed an apron and went into the back kitchen of the food stand. It turned out that everything they sold was in paper and plastic packaging, so my only job was to wash out one tray that came in every half hour or so. So I did what anybody would do if they were in the back kitchen alone with no work to do, and started using my phone, just scrolling through Facebook. Around 2 hours later, a lady storms into the back kitchen and immediately starts shouting at me for using my phone and doing no work. She then introduces herself as the catering manager, in charge of several food stands, and is furious that I'm sitting there doing absolutely nothing. I explained to her that I spent an hour waiting to be told where I was working, and I've been washing everything that comes through. It turns out she'd been looking for me because I was supposed to be doing pot washing at a different food stand on the other side of the center, and went on to say, I will personally ensure you don't get paid for a minute's work you've done today, calling me work shy and being very insulting. Everyone in the front kitchen can hear her because of how loud she's yelling. I call my manager and relay all of this to her, and this is where the malicious compliance comes in. As I had been told that any work I would be doing that day would be unpaid, I had no contractual obligation to do said work. My wage for the day had already been paid to my agency, and my manager's advice was to stay at the center until the end of my shift time. If I was unable to do any work because of an error on their part, I would still be paid by my agency. If I've been told I'm not going to get paid for even a minute of work, I'm sure as hell not going to waste my time working. The next 4 hours were spent sat on my phone in front of the food stand, getting angry looks from the catering manager whenever she walked past. She called her manager, who called my agency, who then showed them that I had arrived on time, had been sending constant updates on being D'd around, and had been asked to do a completely different job to what I was being paid for. They also told them about the verbal abuse and threats of not being paid from the catering manager. The cherry on top was that this manager was forced to apologize to me, and I earned a full day's wages for basically sitting on my phone all day. You're very lucky, OP. It's amazing how contractors and recruiting agencies can be good for workers. If they aren't scum themselves, they can do a good job as a third party that fights for the worker against the employee. I worked for a staffing agency in my first job out of college, and it's crazy how many companies don't pay their bills. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications.